Hello everybody, this is Refresh, and I'm here to put the original set of challenger decks for Magic the Gathering up against each other in Explorers of Ixalan. We have all the decks here, represented by their various deck boxes, and we'll get started by rolling dice to see who goes first. Hazard Aggro rolls a 9, Second Sun Control rolls a 6, Counter Surge rolls a 10, Vehicle Rush rolls a 6. Counter Surge will go first, and we'll each draw 7 cards apiece. Counter Surge draws a Dream Stealer, Swamp, Dream Stealer, Glint Sleeve Siphoner, Foul Orchard, Walk the Plank, and Forest. I think this is a fine opening hand, so we'll keep it. Vehicle Rush draws an Unlicensed Disintegration, Dragon Skull Summit, Inspiring Vantage, Toolcraft Exemplar, Unlicensed Disintegration, Veteran Motorist, and Heart of Kiran. This is a bit of a slow hand, but I think it's okay to keep, so we will do so. Hazard Aggro draws a Sun-Scorched Desert, Lightning Strike, Soulscar Mage, Mountain, and Shock. It's a little land heavy, but I think we can still keep it because we have things to do. Second Sun Control draws a Plains, Glimmer of Genius, Opt, Island, Plains, Cast Out, and Fumigate. There's no activity here, but I think just between opting and casting out and fumigate, we might have enough to survive, so we'll keep this hand as well. Because it's multiplayer, we'll all draw on the first turn. Counter Surge draws a Verdurous Gearhulk, and they'll play a Foul Orchard tapped, and they'll pass the turn. Vehicle Rush draws, gets a Spire of Industry. Vehicle Rush will play the Inspiring Vantage, and it says enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or fewer other lands. We control 2 or fewer, so we'll go ahead and tap it for white and play the Toolcraft Exemplar, which is a 1/1 Dwarf Artificer. It says at the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control an artifact, Toolcraft Exemplar gets +2/+1 until end of turn. If you control 3 or more artifacts, it also gains first strike until end of turn. We don't control anything, and it has Summoning Sickness, so we will now pass the turn. Hazard Aggro draws a Lightning Strike, will play a Mountain, then we'll tap the Mountain and play a Soulscar Mage. This is a 1/2 human wizard with prowess. If a source you control would deal non-combat damage to a creature an opponent controls, put that many -1/-1 counters on that creature instead. And then we will pass the turn. Second Sun Control draws a Supreme Will, will play an Island, and then we will pass the turn holding up the Opt. Counter Surge untaps, they draw, they get another Foul Orchard. We will play a Forest now, and then we'll tap the Foul Orchard for black and the Forest to play the Glint Sleeve Siphoner. It is a 2/1 human rogue with Menace. When Glint Sleeve Siphoner enters the battlefield or attacks, you get an energy counter. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may pay 2 energy. If you do, draw a card and you lose 1 life. So this is a card draw engine. We're going to go ahead and get our energy. We'll use this counter here to track our energy. We'll put it down by the deck over here at 1. And then Counter Surge will pass the turn. Vehicle Rush untaps, draws, gets a Concealed Courtyard, and we'll play the Concealed Courtyard. It says it enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or fewer lands. There's 2 or fewer here. Then we'll tap both the Inspiring Vantage and the Concealed Courtyard and play the Heart of Kiran. The Heart of Kiran is a 4/4 legendary artifact vehicle with flying and vigilance with crew 3, and you may remove a loyalty counter from a planeswalker you control rather than pay the Heart of Kiran's crew cost. It's the beginning of combat on our turn. We do control an artifact, and so the Toolcraft Exemplar gets +2/+1, becoming a 3/2, and we will just attack Second Sun Control with the Toolcraft Exemplar for 3. Second Sun Control can't block, will take 3 and go to 17. Then Vehicle Rush will pass the turn. Hazard Aggro untaps, draws, gets a Fanatical Firebrand. They'll play a Mountain, and then they will tap 1 mana and play the Fanatical Firebrand. It is a 1/1 Goblin Pirate with haste, and you can tap it to sacrifice it to deal 1 damage to target creature or player. Hazard Aggro will tap the Mountain, casting Shock, targeting the Glint Sleeve Siphoner for 2 damage. That will trigger Prowess, making the Soulscar Mage a 2/3, and it would put 2 -1/-1 counters on the Glint Sleeve Siphoner. Siphoner goes down. Hazard Aggro will send the Soul Scar Mage at the Vehicle Rush and the Fanatical Firebrand at Counter Surge. Vehicle Rush can't block, they'll take 2 and go to 18. Counter Rush can't block, they'll take 1 and go to 19. Then Hazard Aggro will pass the turn. At the end of Hazard Aggro's turn, Second Son Control will cast Opt. It says scry 1 and then draw a card. So we'll scry 1. We see Kefnet the Mindful here. We'll keep him on top and then immediately draw him. Then we'll untap. Then we'll draw. We get a Glimmer of Genius. We'll play an island. And then we will spend 1 mana to take a look at one of these tiles here. We get a Sails Unfurled. It's a quest. The next creature that enters the battlefield under your control enters with an additional +1/+1 counter on it, and it gets haste until end of turn. It's not that useful to my deck here. We'll go ahead and spend the other mana to explore this tile here. And we get another quest, Plunder the Plunderers. The next time combat damage is dealt to you, create 2 treasure tokens. So now we'll be able to accelerate our mana, which is very good because that will get us into our Fumigate should we need to do so. And then we'll use our ability to put one of these tokens on this tile here so that other players can't take it, and then we will pass the turn. Counter Surge untaps, draws, gets a Longtusk Cub, and then Counter Surge will play a Swamp and will tap all 3 mana, playing a Dream Stealer. It is a 1/2 human wizard with Menace. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, that player discards that many cards. And then Counter Surge will pass the turn. Vehicle Rush untaps, draws, gets another Unlicensed Disintegration. We'll now play the Spire of Industry. It is a land with tap, add colors to your mana pool, and tap, pay 1 life, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Activate this ability only if you control an artifact. Then we will tap this for red and this for white, and we'll play the Veteran Motorist. It is a 3/1 Dwarf Pilot. When Veteran Motorist enters the battlefield, scry 2, and whenever Veteran Motorist crews a vehicle, that vehicle gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So we'll go ahead and play this, and then we will scry 2. We have an Unclaimed Territory and a Spire of Industry coming up next. We're going to go ahead and put both on the bottom because we're doing okay with lands here, and we'd like a little bit more action to finish off the game. And then we'll use the Veteran Motorist to crew the Heart of Quran, making it a 5/5. And the Toolcraft Exemplar will get a +2/+1, making it a 3/2. And then the pair of these are going to attack Hazard Aggro for 7 damage. Hazard Aggro can only just take 7, so they'll take 7 and go to 13. Then Vehicle Rush will spend 1 colorless mana to explore this tile here. They get From the Mists, put a permanent card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your hand onto the battlefield. We only have the Dragon Skull Summit, and so we'll put that onto the battlefield. It says it enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a swamp or a mountain. We control neither, so we'll just enter the battlefield tapped, and then this event will be removed and Vehicle Rush will pass the turn. Hazard Aggro untaps, draws, they get Hazard the Fervent. We'll play a mountain. Vehicle Rush will have put a counter on here to prevent it from being taken. Hazard Aggro will then pay 1 mountain to take a look at this tile here. They get Dusk's Embrace as the quest. The next time a creature you control dies, draw a card. And then Hazard Aggro will pass the turn. Second Son Control untaps, draws, gets a Supreme Will. We'll play the Plains over here. Second Son Control will tap 3 mana and play Kefnet the Mindful. It is a 5/5 God with Flying Indestructible. Kefnet the Mindful can't attack or block unless you have 7 or more cards in hand. And then you can spend 4 mana to draw a card, and then you may return a land you control to its owner's hand. That will trigger Sails Unfurled, and then Kefnet will come onto the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter, as well as haste. It doesn't matter because we have only 6 cards in hand, so we can't attack just yet. So Second Son Control will pass the turn. Counter Surge will untap, draw, you get a Swamp. We'll play the Foul Orchard tapped. We will attack Second Son Control with the Dream Sealer. Second Son Control cannot block and will discard a Supreme Will. And then This will trigger the next quest, and so we'll get 2 treasure tokens. Then Counter Surge will tap the rest of their mana and play another Dream Stealer. Also, the protection on that piece of land wears off, and then Counter Surge will pass the turn. At the end of Counter Surge's turn, Hazard Aggro will tap both mountains and play Lightning Strike, targeting the Veteran Motorist to deal 3 damage to it. That will pump up the Soulscar Mage. Not that it matters that much. The Veteran Motorist dies. Also, Hazard Aggro should be at 12 because of the +1/+1 that the Heart of Karan had. Then Vehicle Rush untaps. Vehicle Rush draws. Gets an Evolving Wilds. Vehicle Rush will play the Evolving Wilds. Vehicle Rush will go to combat, and that will make the Toolcraft Exemplar a 3/2. We'll tap this Toolcraft Exemplar to accrue the Heart of Karan, and we will attack Counter Surge with the Heart of Karan for 4. Heart of Karan takes 4 and goes to 15. And then Vehicle Rush will tap 1 colorless to explore this tile. It says Valuable Recon, create a treasure token, and then look at any face down tile. We get a treasure token, and we will look at this very tile. It is a Savage Stirring event. Keep until your next turn. At the beginning of combat, on each player's turn, that player may choose a creature. Until end of turn, that creature gets +3/+3, gains trample, and can't attack you. So it's a way for my opponents to attack each other. And because we have the treasure now, I think we can spend 1 more mana. So we will use the Dragon Skull Summit to investigate another piece of land right here. This is Too Much to Carry event. You create 2 treasure tokens, and an opponent of your choice creates 1 treasure token. So we'll create 2 treasure tokens. Now we have even more mana, and we will choose Hazard Aggro to get the last counter token. And then we'll crack the Evolving Wilds to search for a land. Grab a basic swamp and put it onto the battlefield tapped. We'll shuffle, and then we'll pass the turn. Hazard Aggro untaps, draws. They get another mountain. This is not good. Hazard Aggro will play the Sunscorched Desert. It is a desert land. When Sunscorched Desert enters the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to target player. Will deal 1 damage to Counter Surge. Counter Surge takes 1 and goes to 14. Hazard Aggro will tap 1 to, this comes off, to check out this tile here. It is Cannons to Port. It says the next time you deal combat damage to a player on your left, draw a card. That makes this choice pretty easy, but first we'll spend 1 more mana to look at, Vehicle Rush would have put a counter on here to prevent anyone from taking it. So we will spend 1 more mana to look at this tile here. We get Broadsided Assault, deal 2 damage to each opponent. Second Sun Control goes to 15. Counter Surge goes to 12. Vehicle Rush goes to 16. And we'll put a blocker on this tile here. And then Hazard Aggro will attack with a Fanatical Firebrand into Vehicle Rush for 1. Vehicle Rush takes 1 and goes to 15. This completes Cannons to Port, and so Hazard Aggro will draw a card. That is a mountain. And Hazard Aggro, feeling the flood coming on, will tap 1 more mountain and take another look at this tile here. It says Natural Defenses. It's create 2 Sapling tokens, and an opponent of your choice creates 1 Sapling token. There's our 2 Saplings, and we'll give 1 Sapling to Second Sun Control, and then Hazard Aggro will pass the turn. Second Sun Control untaps, draws, gets an Irrigated Farmland. We'll play that tapped, and then we'll hold up our mana, and we will pass the turn. Counter Surge untaps, Counter Surge draws, gets a Glendsleeve Siphoner. Counter Surge will play their Swamp. Counter Surge will tap all the mana and play Verdurous Gearhulk. It is a 4/4 artifact construct with trample. When Verdurous Gearhulk enters the battlefield, distribute 4 +1/+1 counters among any number of creatures you control. Second Sun Control will spend 3 mana and play Supreme Will. It is an instant. It says choose 1 capture target spell unless its controller pays 3. Or look at the top 4 cards of your library. Put 1 of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. We'll choose to counter the Verdurous Gearhulk. The Gearhulk is countered and will go to the graveyard. Counter Surge is reasonably upset and will attack Second Son Control with both Dream Stealers. Second Son Control takes 2, going to 13, and then we'll discard 2 cards. We'll discard a Cast Out and a Glimmer of Genius, and then Counter Surge will pass the turn. Vehicle Rush untaps, draws, gets a Scrap Heap Scrounger. Vehicle Rush will spend a colorless and a black to play the Scrap Heap Scrounger. It is a 3/2 artifact construct. Scrap Heap Scrounger can't block, and for 1 and a black, exile another creature card from your graveyard, return Scrap Heap Scrounger from your graveyard to the battlefield. We'll tap it immediately to crew Heart of Karan, making it a 4/4 flying vigilance. Then we'll send the Heart of Karan at Hazard Aggro and the 3/2 Toolcraft Exemplar at Counter Surge. Hazard Aggro can't block, so they'll take 4 and go to 8. Counter Surge can't block, they'll take 3 and go to 9. And on the second main, we'll tap the remaining mana here and look at this tile. We know what it does. It says Savage Stirring. Keep until your next turn. At the beginning of combat in each player's turn, that player may choose a creature. It gets +2/+3 in trample and can't attack you. And then Vehicle Rush will pass the turn. Hazard Aggro untaps, draws, gets Karizev Skyship Raider. Hazard Aggro will play a mountain, and then we will spend 3 mana to take a look at this tile here. It is a site, gold-laden shipwreck. At the beginning of your end step, create a treasure token. So we'll be getting a treasure token every turn until we are dealt combat damage. And then we'll go to combat. We'll give the Saproling the +3/+3, and we'll go after Second Son Control. The Soulscar Mage will attack Vehicle Rush. Vehicle Rush takes 1 and goes to 14. Second Son Control will chump with the Saproling and hold their life total. And then we'll spend 2 mana and play Karizev Skyship Raider. It is a 1/3 human pirate with first strike and menace. Whenever it attacks, create a legendary 2/1 red monkey creature token named Ravagan that's tapped and attacking. Exile that token at the end of the turn. And then we'll end the turn getting another treasure token. Second Son Control untaps, draws, gets a Field of Ruin. We'll play the Field of Ruin. Second Son Control will tap out and play Fumigate. It says destroy all creatures. You gain 1 life for each creature destroyed this way. While that's on the stack, Hazard Aggro will tap and sacrifice the Fanatical Firebrand to deal 1 damage to Second Son Control. Control takes the damage and goes to 12. All the creatures die. Counter Surge loses both Dream Stealers. Vehicle Rush loses the Exemplar and the Scrap Heap Scrounger. Hazard Aggro loses everything. And we'll gain 9 life from the Fumigate to go back up to 21. And then Second Son Control will pass the turn. Counter Surge untaps, draws, gets a swamp, will play the swamp. Counter Surge will pay 6 mana and play the Dreamcatcher at Eternalized. It says, exile this card from your graveyard, create a token that's a copy of it, except it's a 4/4 black zombie human wizard with no mana cost. And so it is now a 4/4 black zombie human wizard with the ability to deal damage and make them discard 4 cards. And then Counter Surge will pass the turn. At the end of Counter Surge's turn, Vehicle Rush will sacrifice all 3 treasures and cast Unlicensed Disintegration, targeting the Dream Stealer. It says destroy target creature if you control an artifact. Unlicensed Disintegration deals 3 damage to that creature's controller. Counter Surge loses their creature and it goes to exile. And then they will take 3 damage to go to 6. Then Vehicle Rush untaps. Savage Stirring goes away. Vehicle Rush will draw. They get an Evolving Wilds. We'll play the Evolving Wilds. We'll spend 1 colorless mana to take this tile here. It says Sails Unfurled. The next creature that enters the battlefield under your control enters with a +1/+1 counter and gains haste. Then we will spend 3 more mana and take a look at this tile here. It says throw overboard, destroy target creature you don't control. Unfortunately, there are no creatures that can be destroyed that we don't control, so I think that's going to be it for Vehicle Rush. They will put their locking counter on this tile here, and Vehicle Rush will pass the turn. Hazard Aggro untaps, Draws, gets an on-crop crasher, we'll play the mountain. For 3 mana, we'll play the on-crop crasher. It is a 3/2 haste and you may exert it, and when you do, the target creature can't block this turn. Then we will pay 4 mana, sacrificing the treasure to get Hazard the Fervent. Oh, and we should have drawn a card from Dusk's Embrace, so we have another land, which will change our plans here. When we lost our creatures, Dusk's Embrace should have triggered, so we should have drawn another card. We get a mountain as well. We will play the On-Crop Crasher for 3 mana, and it is a 3/2 Minotaur Warrior with haste. You may exert On-Crop Crasher as it attacks. When you do, target creature can't block this turn, and then we will attack Vehicle Rush for 3. Vehicle Rush takes 3 and goes to 11. Hazard Aggro will then spend 1 mana to look at this tile. They get a quest, study the 9 rivers. The next time you draw a card, instead look at the top 4 cards of your library, put 1 into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library. And then we'll spend 3 more, sacrificing the treasure, to take a look at this tile, which is secure the high ground. Keep until your next turn, creatures can't attack you. And then we'll put our blocking tile on this one. And then Hazard Aggro will pass the turn. Second Sun Control untaps. They draw. They get an Ipnu Rivulet. We'll play the Ipnu Rivulet. It says tap, add colorless to your mana pool. Tap, pay 1 life, add blue to your mana pool. Pay 1 blue, tap, sacrifice a desert. Target player puts the top 4 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. Then we will tap 4 mana and play the Glimmer of Genius. It says scry 2, then draw 2 cards, then you get 2 energy. We'll use this to mark our energy at 2. We'll scry 2. We will keep the Fumigate and put the island on the bottom. Then we'll draw the Fumigate and draw a Plains. And then we will pass the turn. Counter Surge untaps, draws, gets Gonti, Lord of Luxury. We'll spend 2 mana to play Walk the Plank, targeting the On-Crop Crasher. It says sorcery, destroy target non-merfolk creature. The Crasher dies. Hazard Aggro should have a treasure from the gold-laden shipwreck. And then Counter Surge will tap 2 for black, and then play the Glintsleeve Siphoner. We'll get another energy. And then we'll tap 2 more and play the Long Tusk Cub. That is a 2/2 cat. Whenever Long Tusk Cub deals combat damage to a player, you get 2 energy, and then you can pay 2 energy to put a +1/+1 counter on Long Tusk Cub. Then Counter Surge will pass the turn. Vehicle Rush untaps, draws, gets an Ether Hub. We'll play the Ether Hub. It says when Ether Hub enters the battlefield, you get 1 energy. We'll get 1 energy. You can tap to add colors to your mana pool, and tap, pay energy. You may add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. We will pay 1 colorless to look at this tile over here. And it is High and Dry Pirate's Market site. At the beginning of your end step, you may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. Oh, we'll sack the Evolving Wilds and look for another land. Take a mountain and put it on the battlefield tapped. Shuffle. And then we will hold everything and we will pass the turn. This comes off. It's Hazard Aggro's turn. They'll untap. They'll draw. They get a Bomat Courier. We'll play the Mountain. This will wear off. We'll play 1 mana and play the Bomat Courier. We'll tap 4 mana and play Hazard the Fervent. That is a 5/4 god with indestructible haste. Hazard the Fervent can't attack or block unless you have 1 or fewer cards in hand. That is true. And then you can pay 2 and discard a card, and Hazard damage will deal 2 damage to each opponent. Bomat Courier is a 1/1 artifact construct with haste. Whenever Bomat Courier attacks, exile the top card of your library face down. You can pay red and discard your hand and sacrifice Bomat Courier and put all the cards exiled with Bomat Courier into their owner's hands. Oh, we were supposed to use Study the 9 Rivers. Let's put this mountain back on top. Look at the top 4. And then we will have taken the Harsh Mentor and put that in our hand instead. The rest on the bottom. And then we will attack Second Sun Control with Hazard and Bomat Courier. Bomat Courier will exile the top card, which is a mountain, and and that is 6 damage coming to Second Son Control. Second Son Control has no defenses. They will take 6 damage and go to 15. Then Hazard Aggro will get the treasure and end the turn. This falls off. Second Son Control untaps. Draws. Gets a Censor. Second Son Control will play the Plains. Then they'll tap 5. They'll play Fumigate again. Hazard will tap the Mountain and sacrifice the Bomat Courier to take this exiled mountain into our hand. Fumigate will destroy the Longtusk Cub and the Glint Sleeve Siphoner. Second Son Control will gain 2 life to go back up to 17. Second Son Control will spend 3 mana, sacrificing a treasure to look at this tile here. It is a site, Deep Root Tree. At the beginning of your end step, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control, and we'll put a block on this tile, I guess. And then we will put a +1/+1 counter on Kefnet, making him a 7/7 that can't attack or block. And Second Son Control will pass the turn. Counter Surge untaps. Draws. Gets an Hour of Glory. And then we'll spend 4 mana and play Gonti, Lord of Luxury. It is a 2/3 Aetherborn Rogue with Death Touch. When Gonti, Lord of Luxury enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of target opponent's library. Exile one of them face down and then put the rest on the bottom of the library in any order. For as long as that card remains exiled, you may look at it and you may cast it, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any type to cast it. We'll take a look at Second Son Control's deck and take a look at the top 4 cards. We have an Aether Meltdown, Opt, Island, and Irrigated Farmland. We'll go ahead and take the Aether Meltdown, exiling it, and put the rest on the bottom. And then Counter Surge will pass the turn. Vehicle Rush untaps. Draws. Gets a Veteran Motorist. Vehicle Rush will spend a white and a red and play the Veteran Motorist. When it enters the battlefield, we'll scry 2. We'll keep Toolcraft Exemplar on top, and we'll put Sky Sovereign Console Flagship on the bottom. And then we will tap the Veteran Motorist to crew the Heart of Quran, making it a 5/5 flyer. And we will attack Second Son Control with the Heart of Quran. Second Son Control cannot block. We'll take 5 and go to 12. Oh, and the Veteran Motorist should have had a counter in haste. Not that that matters. And then Vehicle Rush will pass the turn. Hazard untaps. Draws. Gets a Harsh Mentor. We'll play a Mountain. We'll spend 2 mana to Lightning Strike the Gonti, Lord of Luxury. It says Lightning Strike deals 3 damage to target creature or player. Lord of Luxury dies. Hazard will attack Vehicle Rush with Hazard the Fervent. Vehicle Rush takes the hit. We'll lose control of the High and Dry Pirates Market. And then Hazard will follow up by paying 4 mana and playing the Harsh Mentor, and we'll spend 3 mana sacrificing the treasures to take a look at this tile here. It says Wavering Allegiance, exchange control of 2 target creatures. We'll exchange control of the Harsh Mentor and the Veteran Motorist. Then at the end of the turn, we will get a treasure token. We'll put this on here on number 6. And then we will pass the turn. Second Son Control untaps. Draws. Gets Approach of the Second Son. We'll spend all 7 mana, sacrificing our treasure to cast Approach of the Second Son. It is sorcery. It says, if Approach of the Second Son was cast from your hand and you've cast another spell named Approach of the Second Son this game, then you win the game. Otherwise, put Approach of the Second Son into its owner's library, 7th from the top, and you gain 7 life. So we'll put it 7th from the top, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We'll gain 7 life to go back up to 19. At the end of the turn, the Deep Root Tree will trigger, making Kefnet bigger. And then Second Son Control will pass the turn. Counter Surge untaps. Draws. Gets a Rishkar Pima Renegade. And Counter Surge will pass the turn. Vehicle Rush untaps. Draws. Gets a Toolcraft Exemplar. This should come off. We'll pay 1 white to play the Toolcraft Exemplar. The Exemplar will gain +2/+1, become a 3/2. We'll tap it to crew the Heart of Quran, and we will attack Hazard Aggro with the Heart of Quran. Hazard Aggro cannot block. We'll take 4 and go to 4, and we'll lose both of the sites. We'll spend 1 mana to look at this tile here. It says cannons to starboard. The next time you deal combat damage to the player on your right, draw a card. And then we'll spend 3 mana to take a look at this tile here. It is Unwitting Accomplice. Gain control of target creature until end of turn. Untap that creature. It gains haste until end of turn. It doesn't matter now. We should have done this before. We'll control Hazoret and return it. And then we'll get a treasure token. And then we'll pass the turn. Hazoret aggro untaps. Draws. Gets a Bomat Courier. We'll play the Bomat Courier. We'll spend 6 mana to search this land here. We get the Bloodfast End. For each opponent, destroy up to 1 target permanent that player controls. We'll put this on this tile here, and we will destroy the Heart of Quran. Second Son controls dual land, and one of the dual lands for Counter Surge. Dual land goes down. Foul Orchard goes down. Heart of Quran goes down. And then we'll attack Second Son control with the Veteran Motorist and Bomat Courier. Bomat Courier will exile this card. It is an Abrade. Second Son control can only just take the 5 damage and go to 14. They'll lose the Deep-Root Tree. And then we'll go to the end step. We'll gain a +1/+1 counter and put it on Hazoret. And Hazoret will pass the turn. Second Son control untaps. Draws. Gets a Settle the Wreckage. They will cycle the Censor, drawing a Glimmer of Genius, and then Second Son control will pass the turn. Counter Surge will draw. They'll get an Aether Hub. They'll play the Aether Hub. They'll get 1 energy, and then they will tap 3 mana to play Rishkar Pima Renegade. He is a 2/2 Elf Druid. When Rishkar Pima Renegade enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures. Each creature you control with a counter on it has tapped add green to your mana pool. We only have 1 creature. We'll put 1 counter on Rishkar, making them 3/3, and then we will pass the turn. Vehicle Rush untaps. Draws. Gets a Spire of Industry. Vehicle Rush will pass the turn, getting a treasure token, and we'll discard the Spire of Industry to draw a new card, which is a Bomat Courier. Hazoret aggro will untap. We'll draw, getting a Magma Spray. Hazoret aggro will spend 1 red to cast Magma Spray, targeting the Harsh Mentor. It says Magma Spray deals 2 damage to target creature. If that creature would die this turn, exile it instead. Harsh Mentor goes down. Hazoret aggro will then attack Second Son control with Hazoret the Fervent, and will attack Vehicle Rush with the Veteran Motorist, and Second Son control will also get attacked by the Bomat Courier. We'll exile the top card, which is a Fanatical Firebrand. In response to the attack, Vehicle Rush will tap 3 mana and play Unlicensed Disintegration, targeting Veteran Motorist. Motorist dies, and Hazoret goes to 1. Second Son control will tap 4 mana and play Settle the Wreckage. Exile all attack creatures target player controls, targeting Hazoret. That player may search his or her library for that many basic lands and put those onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle his or her library. We'll take this back, by the way. Before that takes impact, Hazoret will sacrifice the Bomat Courier, taking these 2 cards into her hand, and then we'll exile Hazoret the Fervent, and we'll search out a basic land card. It's a mountain. We'll put it into the battlefield tapped. We'll shuffle. We'll spend 2 mana and play the Harsh Mentor. We'll spend 1 mana and play the Fanatical Firebrand. At the end of the turn, we'll put a +1/+1 counter on the Harsh Mentor, making it a 3/3, and then we'll pass the turn. Second Son control untaps. Draws. Gets an island. We'll play the island. We'll spend 6 mana and reveal this tile here. Is Rise from the Depths. Put the top 6 cards of your library into a graveyard, then search your graveyard for a number of creatures whose total power is 6 or less and put them onto the battlefield. So we'll take the top 6 and put a Opt Island, Approach of the Second Son, Fumigate, Irrigated Farmland Island into the graveyard, which is really annoying. There are no creatures here to take out, and so Second Son control got absolutely nothing for that. We'll put our counting blocker on this tile here, and then we'll tap the island to look at this tile here. It says cannons to starboard. The next time you deal combat damage to the player on your left, draw a card. It's not happening. And then we will put our blocking tile on this. And then second sun control will pass the turn. Counter Surge untaps, draws, gets a Winding Constrictor. Counter Surge will play the Winding Constrictor. And then Counter Surge will attack Vehicle Rush for 3. Vehicle Rush will respond by casting Unlicensed Disintegration, targeting Rishkar, Pima Renegade. Rishkar dies, and Counter Surge goes down to 3. And then Counter Surge will pass the turn. Vehicle Rush untaps, draws, gets an Aether Sphere Harvester. Vehicle Rush will spend 3 to play the Aether Sphere Harvester. We'll spend 1 to play the Bowmat Courier. The Toolcraft Exemplar will become a 3/2 and will attack Second Sun Control with the Toolcraft Exemplar. Second Sun Control takes 3 and goes to 11. At the end of the turn, we will get a treasure and we will pass the turn. Hazoret Aggro untaps, draws, gets Chandra Torture Defiance. We'll spend 4 mana and cast Chandra Torture Defiance. She's a 4 loyalty Chandra Planeswalker. For +1, exile top card of your library. You may cast that card. If you don't, Chandra Torture Defiance deals 2 damage to each opponent. +1, add 2 to your mana pool. -3, Chandra Torture Defiance deals 4 damage to target creature. And -7, you get an emblem. Whenever you cast a spell, this emblem deals 5 damage to a creature or player. We will put our counters on Chandra, and then we will immediately +1 to 5 loyalty, and we will exile the mountain. We cannot cast the mountain, so we'll deal 2 damage to each opponent. Second Sun Control goes down to 9. Counter Surge goes down to 1. Vehicle Rush goes down to 9. And then we'll spend 1 mana to take a look at this. It is Walls of Adanto. Creatures can't attack you. An opponent may pay 1 to ignore this effect until end of turn. And then we'll add a +1/+1 counter to the Harsh Mentor, making it a 4/4. And we'll put a blocking token on this one over here. And then we'll pass the turn. Second Sun Control untaps, draws, gets a cast out. Second Sun Control will spend 4 mana and cast out on Chandra Torture Defiance. Chandra is exiled. And then Second Sun Control will spend 3 mana to use this tile here. It says Blade and Claw. The next time you attack with exactly 2 creatures, untap them. They each get +2/+2 until end of turn. We're not really doing that. And we'll put a blocker on the 6, and then we will pass the turn. Counter Surge untaps, draws, gets a Foul Orchard. We'll play that tapped, and Counter Surge will pass the turn. Vehicle Rush untaps, draws, gets a Heart of Quran. We'll spend 2 mana and play the Heart of Quran. And then we will go to combat the Toolcraft Exemplar. We'll then tap and attack Second Sun Control for 3. Second Sun Control takes 3 and goes to 6. And Vehicle Rush will pass, getting another treasure. Hazoret will untap. Draw, gets a Lightning Strike. Hazoret will put a counter on Harsh Mentor. Hazoret will spend 1 mana to look at this tile. It is Cannons to port. The next time you deal combat damage to a player on your left, draw a card. Hazoret will spend 3 mana and look at this tile. It is Blessing of the Shapers. Your next creature enters the battlefield with 3 +1/+1 counters on it. Hazoret will then put the blocking tile on this and will get a +1/+1 counter and will pass the turn. Second Sun Control untaps, draws, gets Approach of the Second Sun, and Second Sun Control will tap out and cast Approach of the Second Sun and win the game. That was close. Let me know what your thoughts were about this battle in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. If you'd like to see more of these videos, you can hit subscribe. This is Refresh. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.